everyone. Welcome to another episode of LunarCRUSH Live. We are out of this world today. Excited to have the team from Algorand, Keli, Paul, Addie, coming on here shortly. Just a reminder to everyone, we do not take payment for these live streams. We find projects and people that we love that are contributing to the ecosystem and bring them to the forefront as much as we can. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We got some pretty fun ones coming up here soon, and we will announce those over the next week or so. As soon as we get those graphics made, right, John? But yeah, get that subscribe button on YouTube, and John's going to go through some social insights for Algo and for Algorand, and I'm excited because I got my Bit Bus koozie. I'm keeping everything cool today because I know this is going to be a great one. So take it away, my friend.
Nice. I'm not that cool. So I'm honestly so excited to talk to this team today because I actually remember sitting in our office in Orange County, California, it must have been just over a year ago, saying, hey, there's this really smart Italian guy, Silvio, from he works at MIT, and he's got this new project, Algorand. Guys, we should check it out. And it looks really advanced, and we really should do some research on it. And so pretty amazing to sit here a year later and go, let's see where things are at. So what I want to do to start is really go over some of the social metrics that we're seeing on LunarCRUSH.com, and really an awesome time to be having this discussion because social activity is really moving on up. So if we just look at the last year, we could see the price is up about 150%. And I think that tells only part of the story here, because when you look at the social activity, so just looking at social volume, we hit an all-time high yesterday. And so I'm really curious to see where this goes here. We hit 5,711 social mentions, which really what that's doing is it's looking at all sorts of different social channels, and it's seeing every time someone mentions Algorand or the ticker Algo or a hashtag Algorand or any combination of it. And it's really measuring every post that says it. And so we see, over the last year, that's up 697%. So the community activity has really grown a lot. We also see that within that, there's engagements that happen. So all the retweets, all of the likes, all of the comments, all of the upvotes on Reddit and that sort of thing, other comments there as well. We really look at all of that depth, and we see that's up 569%, and it does appear to be on an uptrend right now. And when we look at the number of individuals, this is actually one thing that I'm maybe most excited about when I look at the social data, is because it's one thing to have someone that's like a super mega fan of a project that's posting all day. It's another to actually have an expansive and accelerating community do it. And so what we see in this chart is that, that has never been higher. We've been as high as 4,380 unique users, if you want to give it that metric. It's unique individuals posting per day. And so we see that that's consistently going up, and it's accelerating. So that's one thing to definitely watch. And the other thing to just note here is this is something, social dominance is kind of like market share of social. We look at that how much of the entire pie does Algorand have? And so when we look at that, recently it's hit as high as, if we look there, 0.96% of all social posts that we collect across all coins. Currently it's at 0.57, and that's a daily average of that metric. So these numbers are really going up. And so the other thing to look at is who are the individuals that are doing these posts. And I'll just load this up real quick. So we see, we measure influencer activity across all of this. So we collect all these posts. We classify every single post by coin, by sentiment, if it's spam or if it's from a real human. And we do it, we try to understand a little more depth with the who is doing it. And so we look at really the engagement of the post that individuals post. We look at the number of posts, and we look at the number of followers that they have. And we look at it all over time. And so we take all of that data, and we actually give it a weighted average rank. And so as we'd expect, Algorand's number one on the last year. But what's really interesting is when I look at some of these other influencers on here, these are like the who's who of bulls out there. We got Crypto Macho, Pentoshi, Bagsy, the Crypto Dog.
Oh, wow, they got them all.
Yeah, and Nick Patel, Crypto Newton, Algo Foundation, Crypto Wizard. So it's pretty cool to see like it's their own first party accounts between the Algorand account and the Algo Foundation account mixed in with, again, the who's who of bulls out there. These guys are really busy posting all day long. So to see them on a yearly basis come up here is really awesome. And it's really great. And just to point out one thing, just relatively where things are at, I do want to point out our Compare tool, because this is actually the next thing we're going to be launching is a new version of Compare, which has a lot more functionality. So if we just look at like, where is Algorand? So we've got this super advanced like project out there that I can't wait to talk more about. But how does this compare to, say, maybe an Ethereum? So where are we at? So one of the things that we look at is like combined social and market activity. And we see that Algorand has a 34 right now, and currently 2,092 coins qualify for this metric. They have enough activity for it to qualify. It's actually outranking Ethereum at the moment, which is pretty cool. But when we look at just overall where it's at, and this is, I believe, this is the last week. So if we just look at the last week, I just wanted to point out there's been about 23,000 Twitter posts versus 276,000 Ethereum posts. 989 on Reddit is what we're capturing versus about 19,000 on Reddit. So, one might say that there's this kind of opportunity here. It's earlier stage than Ethereum. And if we look at market cap, I mean, obviously Ethereum's massive, 186 billion. 574 million for Algorand. So, we could probably, just guessing based upon social activity, I would expect the social activity to continue to rise. It's very, very exciting time. So with that, let's bring our guests in, Joe.
All right. Boom, boom. Keli, Addie, welcome to the show, you guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, John. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we always like to start with, and maybe Keli, you can start. Where are you in the world, and what's it like there?
Yeah, so I'm here at Algorand Inc., the technology company, working with Silvio. Glad you gave him the shout out there, John. He really is one of the, I refer to him as the modern day godfather of cryptography, right? Like, he's invented so much stuff and all of these protocols that have been around forever. And really stepped into it. So I head up all our marketing communication, work a lot with our community and the users on more so on the enterprise side that are using Algorand and leveraging it for sort of the next generation of future of finance, right? Like, where all these things are coming. Love the analysis you guys do. Love the work you do. I love being focused on the metrics, and it's like you're inside my head with all this stuff. And I think what's really exciting to see with all of the things you have is just how much of it is from our community, right? How much is from individual users, some of the influencers that really like the project, the tech, and what it's bringing to the table, and the users, the adoption that we're seeing. And I think it's a testament to how many enterprises and people are really developers are really using Algorand right now. It's been growing exponentially, and it's a really exciting time. And I think that's coming through in the metrics that you had up earlier.
Absolutely. And then Addie, you're with the foundation, but maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and what's a day in the life look like for you with Algo.
So hi, I'm Addie Wagenknecht. I'm with the Algorand Foundation. I'm doing, currently I'm the director of ecosystem development and venture allocations. So the day in the life of me, it's quite crazy. I mean, we're a highly decentralized foundation in the sense that we have teams in Asia, Europe, and the States. And so we're kind of constantly working around the clock. I like to joke with a lot of the people I work with that we're on a treadmill, because as soon as I go to sleep, someone else is waking up. And that's sort of how we live, as much as I think crypto exists. So it's definitely fun. I mean, we've been working a lot on things like governance and sort of community mechanisms and looking at the ways in which decentralization will play a role in the future of the chain.
Very cool. Yeah, I think when we all started working remotely and we all joined this industry, we thought, oh, we get to work from home. It's all going to be remote now. But what you realize is that no, that just means an 11 p.m. call with with Singapore and a 5 a.m. call with India. So I think it's it's crazy, but I think it's super fun. And just to kind of like tag along that, I mean, what are some of the areas that the foundation is looking to invest? And we're going to get into a lot of the the different projects and some of the case studies I think that you guys had. And we had Stacks Hero, which is formerly Blockstack, on a couple of weeks ago, and you guys are working with them. But what's it look like when a new company or project starts to interface with you guys?
So there's a lot of different kind of entry points in how you can get involved in the ecosystem. But I think from a foundational standpoint, we look at things like how we can support, encourage, and sort of facilitate community and developers. So we do things like grants. Right now, we've just launched recently a bounties program. And then we have an accelerator program that I would consider quite global. So we just had the demo day pitches for the Asia Accelerator in December. We just closed and announced the finalists for the EU Accelerator. So right now we're going into kind of all the workshops and onboarding of Algorand and pitch workshops and how you present and, decks and these sort of less glamorous parts of venture life. And then we're also doing the FSC challenge in Latin America, where we still have a few days until the applications close for kind of Latin America's specific use cases. So although the communities and the developers don't necessarily have to be based there, but their concept and proof of concepts need to be kind of a deliverable based in that region. And so we're really trying to activate multiple spaces within kind of a more global crypto system. Prior, I've worked with other layer ones, and we were very focused on kind of Europe and the US, but something I've really enjoyed with Algorand has been this global perspective, and we're constantly looking at where we can expand and how we can support those communities.
It's awesome. Yeah. So those LATAM folks, get in there. Only a couple days left. And I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we just started an office in Santiago in Chile. And then, we also just hired our first folks out in Africa. So in Kenya, and just, just the developing world, it kind of reminds me of like Tesla entering the automotive space in such a late time compared to everyone else. You start fresh, and the innovation and the speed from something like that. So just one more thing kind of on the foundation and applying, we went through like a Techstars program, for instance, and, everyone kind of has like this standard way and, paperwork and everything that comes out of that. I mean, are you guys, when you do these accelerator programs, is it kind of like, here's the agreement and you kind of go from there, or are they, because everything is so different in the space. I mean, you might have someone working on more community oriented, more back-end oriented. How do you look at those projects kind of, is it case by case?
I would say, so we just with the European Accelerator, we had a little over 200 applications for 10 positions, and it was really case by case. It was quite a lot of, in a way, it was a taxonomy approach. We were looking at the prior experience of the developers and the community of around it in terms of traction. We were looking at sort of their metrics from a prior work standpoint, and in addition to what we thought, was what they were capable of. We were working with some of our venture capital partners. So they were assessing some of the more business development side of the metrics. And I was looking at things from kind of a technical deployment and how viable it would be for Algorand. Does it make sense, to have Algorand as use case versus another layer one protocol? So it's really a combination of things. Unfortunately, I wish I had a really clear answer for you.
No, I think you kind of answered it there. So I appreciate it. It looks like we've got one more guest. Paul is backstage. I'm going to bring him up. Paul, if you're there, if you can hear us.
How's it going, man? How's it going?
Hey, Paul.
Happy to be here. Appreciate the time.
No, of course. Yeah. For everyone out in the audience, Paul had a little, we got started 10 minutes. Here we go. So Paul, tell us about yourself. What's your day-to-day at Algo, and why'd you get involved with this project?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Paul. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at Algorand. So I'm responsible for product management and the engineering team and our developer relations team. I've been at Algorand for about a little over 2 years now, I believe, 2.5 years. And I came here from the from the cybersecurity space. At a company called Carbon Black, which was originally Bit9, then Carbon Black, and has now been bought by VMware. So I was there through the IPO, and then was looking for my next spot, and got really excited about the blockchain world, and got really lucky getting into Algorand when we were still getting off the ground. So super excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you, and I appreciate it. And I think, last night John and I were kind of sending messages about this, and looking at all the different use cases, on the site, and, maybe Paul, you can just kind of explain a little bit about, what makes Algo special. It's like some of the consensus and staking consensus around like the blockchain. Just kind of explain, like, sometimes what is like the elevator pitch that makes Algo different, that and makes it special so people out there know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's a technology story that's pretty strong in terms of the sort of speeds and feeds, right? 1,000 transactions a second, instant finality. There's no, hey, let's wait on X number of confirmations. We have very, very low fees. So from an economic perspective for application developers or businesses that are looking to bring blockchain into their stack, it's a very sort of predictable, easy way to understand the economics of what it's going to cost you. But there's also sort of more nuanced things like the decentralization by design. You talk about our finality and how that's achieved regardless of the number of users that are actually participating in consensus. There is no sort of second class or different class of citizen. Everyone who is online and participating in consensus can be chosen to propose a block, can be chosen to validate a block. And because of that, if you believe that decentralization is really one of the core concepts of blockchain, which I think probably most of the people on this live stream would agree with, those kinds of features kind of go to the core of what a blockchain is and who it is. And so we believe that we've got these sort of underlying tech in terms of speeds and feeds and costs, but also we are in a position because of the technology to scale as big as the world wants us to scale, and keep and in fact increase our decentralization just because of the way the protocol works. In terms of capabilities, which kind of doesn't get included in that one, we have the capabilities to run smart contracts that are as complex as need to be. If you're looking to build a DeFi application, or you're looking to build a NFT application or a marketplace or whatever it is, we have the capacity to support that. And the great thing is we actually support it at the same speed and the same cost as any other transaction. So it's not an issue where, well, I'm paying $200 anytime. I'll pay a 20th of a cent when I'm just sending a transaction, but if I want to use a smart contract, it's like $200. It's the same cost no matter what, which sort of extends that economic model into more complicated smart contracts. So we're pretty excited about where we're at. We think the underlying tech and the initial design decisions that every blockchain's got to make, like what trade-off do you want to make? We feel like the original design decisions really hold true to the ethos of what you want a blockchain to be, and sort of maximize and flywheel as we get bigger. We don't run into some cap that's inherent in the technology as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And throwing you right into the fire right as you get in.
Yeah, let's do it.
And I think, John and I talked, and John, I want to talk about Ethereum, and fees. And it's like every day we're like, who can find this, who can find the more ridiculous scenario with the higher fee of like, sending you $5 for a hamburger and it's costing me $91. And I mean, this is a huge issue with Ethereum, and obviously they want to solve it, over the next 18 months or so. But we get 10 to 15 DeFi projects that want to be listed on LunarCRUSH that are emailing us every day, and I'm trying to ask all of them, and I don't have enough time. Why Ethereum again? Even though, and it's all about this audience, right? That they think is there, but if it's unusable, it's like an NA, like you can't even do it. I mean, you guys, anyone have an opinion on that and why that keeps happening?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have an opinion. It's exactly what you said. It's the market depth is on Ethereum, which to some degree is true, and to some degree is probably a little bit short-sighted. So the sort of first point here is like, to some degree that's true. The underlying market depth is on Ethereum. However, depending on how you're using some of these DeFi applications, like unless you're really chaining them around, it actually, like, they're fairly silent. Like, it doesn't totally matter that it's on Ethereum. Like, I'm using X wallet and X wallet is connecting to X thing on the back end, or maybe I'm accessing it through APIs, in which case I've written some application that accesses through APIs. Does it matter that my users, does it matter that it's Ethereum on the back end? Probably not in those cases, because it's not that your users are, trying to chain things together. They're using this application and going from there. The second thing I'll say is that the users that we have, we love them, and they are active, and we are rightfully competing for those users. they're probably it is the leading edge, right? There's this whole other segment of customers, if you will, that hasn't been introduced to blockchain. And to your point, if they get introduced to blockchain on an application that is not particularly usable, they're not there because they love blockchain. They're there because they've heard there's this new opportunity that they want to be a part of. And those are the folks that may have less, they are more tied to a good user experience than they are tied to an underlying platform like Ethereum. And then the final thing I'll say is, man, blockchain interoperability has been a buzzword for a long time, but the progress that's being made right now is it's really starting to come on. And including, we've got some really interesting stuff coming out, ways to our blockchain attests to its own state. So you don't need something like a light client that is constantly keeping up with the blocks. You can have a portable cryptographic proof that has signatures from X% of the online stake to allow you to process wherever you want on whatever blockchain to make it completely trustless and decentralized. But there's lots of other really cool solutions out there too that don't have anything to do with our blockchain. And that totally shifts the calculus in terms of how you have to think about where your customers are and how they get to you. And in those, all of these things are basically I don't fault anyone for making a decision of, hey, I think I need to start with Ethereum. But I think it's just going to become less and less of something that anchors people down, especially for new applications.
So what are some of the DEXs that you guys work with or have built or building that are going to solve this fee problem?
Yeah, for sure. So IDEX is a company that's taken, that is looking at Algorand and how they sort of port their thing over. Balancer is another one that's bringing their AMM to Algorand. We've got another kind of set behind that of AMMs that are in development right now. We've got a couple of lending protocols. Someone's doing something they call Staker DAO, which is in the Maker DAO sort of frame of reference. We've got I don't know, those are the ones off the top of my head, but we've got a lot of projects around it that are like just coming to market right now. And that doesn't include, we do have a bunch of things that there's a wrapped algo. There's lots of people who are launching assets on Algorand to take advantage of transaction speed and cost and that kind of thing. But the more complicated, the more interesting sort of DeFi applications, we're right on the tip of people launching. So very exciting from that perspective.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a lot of stuff that we know is being worked on but hasn't been announced, and I think there's some great stuff coming on that front. Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully, I didn't say any names that I wasn't supposed to say.
No, fire up those announcements. That's what we like to just blurt it out. No, it's great, and we always used to talk about like microtransactions, and why do I have to pay $15 for a New York Times subscription and a WAPO subscription and it's like I want to read a small percentage of that publication, and I like, in order to do a microtransaction of 5 cents I got to pay $90. It's just that future seems to be waning unless some other players kind of come and step up and take that place. And so it seems like I did want to talk a little bit about we did have Stacks on here a couple of weeks ago, and the Clarity smart contracts and maybe, and I don't know if any of you guys kind of worked on that with them, but I mean, what does that kind of partnership entail, and maybe some of the details around that partnership and how that works together? And it seems like a lot of smart projects out there are kind of like, Algo seems to be a piece of it, and whether it's kind of like helping build something or kind of rounding out something. So I'd love to hear about how you guys are working with them.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about it from just sort of the more technical level, and then I can pass it off to Keli or Addie to talk more about it.
Sure.
But these are kinds of things that are like hard. They're hard problems. Like I want to do a new language for smart contracts, and I want it to be safe, and I want it to be expressive, and I want it to be all of these different things, and they're hard problems. And so we have very, very smart people at Algorand on our research team that like those hard problems and get after it. But in these kinds of cases, the more smart people, the better. There's a bunch of smart people at Stacks as well who've done a lot of good work there. And so when you talk about the collaboration there, it's really about, hey, let's talk about what that language should look like, and what do we think about this idea, and just sort of the general research process of of breaking new ground. So from a technical perspective, it's a lot about just getting more brains on a common problem, which is something we could probably use more of in blockchain in general. I don't know if you guys want to take it in a slightly different direction on the partnership.
Yeah, I think even if you back it up, like philosophically, I think it's just really interesting that there needs to be like new approaches to some of these things, right? And you've got like some leaders in the industry that are coming together to solve those hard problems. Nobody's trying to do it in a silo. There's work being done to make it, done better across the board. And I think that's really powerful too. The team over at Stacks is great. We love working with Munib and his whole team. And I'm excited for what that will mean in the future, for sure.
I'd love to come back to the gas fee discussion just a little bit, because I think one of the things that maybe like what drove that, and I would say we trade all the time on our own personally and this and that, and we've seen those fees just go like straight up. And then when I think of what is driving that, I mean, you guys talk a lot in your marketing about a borderless economy, and I think, when you look at, the macro narrative right now of, the system is rigged against traders, whether, the Robinhood fiasco, or social driving Doge to the heavens, or, really just the community coming to play. Like, I'm just curious your view on, there's probably never been a stronger point in time for talking about a borderless economy. And I'm just curious, what's your view of what are the building blocks of that? Like, how do we get to a borderless economy?
Who wants to start with that? Addie, you want to take that, or you want to go there?
I mean, for me, I think the low-hanging fruit of that answer would be decentralization, governance, on-chain consensus mechanisms, things that bring the power and the autonomy sort of over the chain and where we're going to the community and the developers and the holders.
Yeah, I think there's a few branches to it, right? I think a key one is inclusivity, right? And it's accessibility. Yeah. So it's, by lower transaction fees, by making, an economy has to be a healthy place for anyone to come and build or succeed or create value or, create their own opportunity, right? So whether that's a company organization that's trying to enable micropayments for people that don't have that kind of access, or if it's an organization trying to give more power to their users and consumers. We had some interesting stuff going on yesterday in the media industry and a few days earlier, the music industry, right? But so I think it's inclusivity and access. I think, the tool, Paul, I'll go to you. You should talk a little bit about some of the tooling and the simplicity of sort of letting people build in that space and what that means in our approach there.
Yeah. One way to think about it is, okay, well, if I'm talking about economy, I'm talking about, representing in a digitally unique way things of value. I'm representing ownership of things of value, and then we're moving those things of value around, which, by the way, blockchains happen to be really good at, right? And so when you look at those building blocks, one way to think about it at a technical level is just like all the way at the building blocks is take a 2x2 sort of table. One axis is capabilities, one axis is attributes. Capabilities would be things like, how many different types of assets can I represent? Can I represent non-fungibles? Can I represent fungibles? Can I represent complex, interest-bearing accounts? Can I do et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And then you pair that on the capability side, so how many different types of assets with how many different types of transactions. And it's a huge spectrum when you talk about types of transactions. There's everything from, I just need to be able to send it to you, Joe, to I want a 100-page contract with Keli that's going to exactly specify out what this transaction looks like. And so you need to be able to support, just at a sort of high level, how can we programmatically take these different transaction types and put them in there. On the attribute side, you're talking about things like cost, you're talking about things like speed, you're talking about things like trust model, kind of all those categories. So that's kind of like the zoom way out. You have to be able to, whatever's going on in a bordered economy, you have to allow for those kinds of things in your borderless economy. There's some like non-negotiables. When you get into it a little bit more, you think about markets. Markets are pretty much the same across like any number of what do you think of as a market, from like an NFT market to a in-game item market to whatever. They all look basically the same. Those building blocks are sound money. You got to have ways that you can transact with very low volatility pieces of value so that you can be comfortable actually making these transactions. You have to have investment opportunities. You have to have insurance of some sort. You have to have places to exchange. You have to have some sort of tax or I don't know, regulatory is probably not quite the right word, but some sort of ability to get reporting and visibility into what's going on. And these markets are just like pick them up and repeat across wherever it is you have value. And so yes to all the things Addie said, yes to all the things Keli said, yes to the high level, but you also have to have these this sort of like templated market that you can pick up and put down. And so that's having the smart contract ability to create those markets, but then it's also building out the ecosystem intentionally in these areas to make sure that you've got a full sort of tight circle of what creates a market. Because for instance, if you have a blockchain and the only thing you have on it is sound money, that's not a market. If you have a blockchain and the only thing you have on it is like NFTs, some collectible tokens, but you don't have any way to exchange them, that's not a market. Creating an asset does not create a market. And so you have to be really intentional about here are the different types of things that need to be available and the way they need to be available in order to create this templated market that you can pick up and put down wherever you need it.
So on that note, considering that the governments are the entities that have created those borders, how are they going to feel about going borderless?
That is not my department.
Just you're just there to build really cool things that work.
That's a good answer.
There you go.
No, go ahead, Addie.
A lot of the value from a developer standpoint, I think, is our SDKs. We have a kind of portfolio of them from Python to Java, JavaScript, Go, and coming in from more of a technical role at my prior layer one, seeing that there was this option base was really refreshing. And we're talking about accessibility and inclusivity. I think that's a really key element to kind of building the ecosystem from the back end.
So talking about your developers and people that are coming on, I mean, maybe give us like a couple of quotes of some developers that have found some success. And it's like, they're like, well, this was really easy to work with. The organization was great. I mean, what do you think people find a lot of value from working with you guys?
Addie, you want to take that one or you want me to take that?
We can both take it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so I guess I'll put it in, I guess, a couple of places where I run across it. So one is, we spent a lot of effort on our developer website, so developer.algorand.org. And it's not just an effort of like, yeah, you got to make sure your docs are updated and complete, but also I want, walkthrough solutions and tutorials and actual code examples and et cetera. And then we've also plugged in our community into content creation for that site. So you can create your solutions tutorials and get it up on that site. And we've got a bunch of actually really exciting things planned for that site coming up. So we're continuing to evolve it. But we've gotten a lot of feedback around the site from brand new developers. Like, hey, I've worked on either other blockchain projects or even just other open source projects. And they've been really happy with the way they can interface in and sort of pick up the basics and then move into more advanced stuff using our site. So just sort of the entry point that way, we've definitely got a lot of feedback on. And that's not to mention people that are doing, not the newbies, but folks that are doing more complex or more advanced development as well. Usually their feedback is more on the accessibility of engineers and other technical folks within the project to get help when they need it. And then also, things like, the Discord community, they can go there and get help. So it's really been more about that aspect, I guess, for folks coming on.
Yeah.
I have to give you guys a shout out. Your developer site is so good that I shared it with our dev team just to show them what a good developer site looks like.
Oh, that's awesome. So Liz Barron is the person, Elizabeth Barron, she's the person that really drives hard on the developer side. So she'll be very, very happy to hear that, as well as all the folks on the DevRel team that are creating content. But you should wait till next. We got cool things coming next. So let me just say, I'm excited.
John, it's a good point. I think Paul, I think John, I appreciate that. I don't think people realize how much great stuff is there from Paul and Liz and the team over there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's something that's not broadly known about Algorand as a resource because, I probably hear more of it than even Paul might, because we see it on social and we come across it and we talk to a lot of the users that have had to get their hands dirty with it. And you get really amazing comments. Like, I thought this was I had blocked 3 or 4 weeks to take care of this, and I got it done in a half a day because the resources were so helpful and I was able to do it. And we've got some great partnerships from the DevRel space. So I think it's an unknown. I think it's really a hidden point for Algorand that once people start to pick up on that, I think there's a ton of traction that we'll get on that side of things.
Yeah, people really forget from a kind of developer standpoint, I think, well, actually maybe even ecosystem standpoint, how young we truly are as a chain. And so it's been really inspiring and encouraging. And I think, like Paul has just said, our docs are really solid, which you can't say for a lot of chains coming in from a developer. I mean, everything compiles, there aren't bugs, there aren't errors, there aren't version updates and things that are kind of common in other ecosystems. So I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of the growth of the community once that becomes more common knowledge.
And I just want to say that our developer channel was very happy that John was calling them out on their dot now.
I think one of the things that really struck us looking at it was, you've got the solutions in there. Like there's one in there. I got it open here, but it's like building a permission voting stateful smart contract application. You got another one in here, example crowdfunding stateful smart contract application. I mean, giving those examples, I think, really gives some context. There's a lot of developer sites we see that are really technically great, but you don't have context to really kind of have a frame of reference with what you're trying to build. So I think that's really important. And on that voting application, I am really curious about that. Algorand for voting, huh? Like, could an election be held on using Algorand?
There's a group of students that did it out of the UK. What university? Addie, maybe you remember?
Yeah, I think it's the Q vote out of Imperial College, possibly.
Yeah,
shout out.
They did back in November. They did a mock-up for any non-US. They were being very political about it. They did non-US participants could actually go and vote, and they had real results, all posted to the blockchain. It was super cool.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, we'd be a great platform for elections. We all know the complexity in elections is more than just having a voting app. Like, there's lots of stuff around that, and certainly that voting app is more of an example on how you might get started than something that's, by the way, built by Jason Weathersby. Shout out to Jason if you're listening. But yeah, we appreciate the feedback on that for sure.
Great.
You should check out the tip bot, John. Even cooler. Good opportunity for the question there.
We'll check that one out.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I see that. Okay, cool. On Telegram. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did an AMA last week and they started tipping me. It's fascinating. It's very good.
Hold on a second. We can get tips in this thing?
That's what I'm saying. Joe and John should get on that.
Yeah, no, we'll make that happen.
I heard, I was on a Clubhouse stream. I don't know if it was, I'm losing my days now. I think it was 2 days ago. And there was someone that's doing marketing for them, and they were saying that the first application that's going to be monetized on Clubhouse is tipping. So that's coming to Clubhouse.
Okay. Tipping the host. That's pretty cool.
It's such a simple way to get started. I mean, just to touch on some of the voting, I feel like it's going to have to come, like you're saying, Paul, from more of a simple angle where maybe someone, is voted into like a smaller congressional district, and they take it upon themselves to say, okay, everyone in my district, based on address or something else that's out there, I will kind of take this law or this thing that I'm voting on, and I will package it in a way that is very simple for you to understand. And then they are the ones that are voting on smaller items in these smaller districts. And then it's like, I mean, that's technically what a direct democracy is, because it's like, how are you going to vote out a person where it's like, well, they just voted the exact way that I told them to vote, right? It's like that. They're you no longer, they're just kind of like a liaison for information, and eventually it starts with people, and then I think eventually it's just, you know, people writing laws and people voting on them. I think that's like, you know, the timeline on that is very long, but I think on a smaller level, it could be done really efficiently.
I agree with all that for sure.
So I wanted, you know, we talked about developer section and everything else, and I want to get into marketing and get Keli in on some of this stuff, but I did want to talk about team really quick. And I mean, you guys are, you know, pretty much decentralized, I think, as an organization. It seems like you're working in different countries. I mean, what does the team, and anyone kind of grab this question, what does the team look like as far as size and breadth right now?
Yeah, so you're talking to people from two different organizations. So there's the Inc. team here based out of Boston, and then Addie works for the Algorand Foundation. And, you know, team size vary. You know, we've got a huge, I think it's less about team size and it's more about sort of all the connecting points. You know, Paul and his team serve as sort of the core hub of some of the innovation going on right now at Algorand, but there's a lot more behind that, right? Whether it's, I mean, Reach is an example. They're doing some developer tooling, and there's others that are building, and there's others that are doing a lot. So it's a relatively small team, but I think it's not about the team size. It's sort of about the growth and expansion of the community. And Addie, I'll let you sort of talk to the foundation. I know Sean Lee, yourself, and some of the others there have a lot going on as well.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Keli. We all wear multiple hats and do multiple things. And as we were talking before we came on, kind of multiple time zones. It's not uncommon to be in a call in Hong Kong, and then later that day be on a call in Sydney and India, and then in France. And so we're kind of really global in that sense. And it's hard to put numbers on because we have so many people who are contributing from the community and from exterior development studios that we work with quite extensively, and accelerators and those sort of things. So it's constantly changing depending on sort of what the scope of work is that we're doing.
Yeah, and should be mentioned, the ambassadors that we have. Algorand has a very formal ambassador program. I think there's over 500 of them now from around 65 some odd countries. Wow. Just, you know, so, and those are part of the team, right? Like that's part of who we are. So you know, it's hard to define clearly, but it spans, and it's expansive, and it's getting bigger every day.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you. And yeah, no, I don't think team size, you know, it doesn't take a large team. WhatsApp had 12 people, right? You know, and I think it's more of a testament to, you know, how strong the team is. And, you know, we have a very small team. Sometimes people think we have 100 people working for us, but they just don't realize John works 48 hours a day. So, you know,
it's all me. It's just the two of us.
Every response, DM, tweet on Twitter. I don't know how he does it, but no, that's very cool. You know, and you know, I think you guys, based on, you know, the size, and I mean, if you were to look at the website and the case studies and everything, I would say, man, they've got 500 people working over there. So whatever you guys are doing is working.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I really do appreciate that as well.
Yeah. John, we want to talk about DeFi a little bit, or do you want to talk about marketing a little bit here?
Well, I'd be curious more just, you know, how does the community, let's talk about marketing. I mean, how does the crypto community fit into your efforts? I mean, obviously, I mean, you go to your site and it's just like, wow, this is super advanced. This is not a normal blockchain project here. This is like, there's some serious effort here. Very, very enterprise level. But how does the community fit into that? Like, how does it, you know, with your strategies going forward? I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because blockchain, as we all know, can be used for almost anything. We've talked about tipping, we've talked about voting. We haven't even talked about the most obvious things like payments, for example, right? And so I think with, you know, at Algorand, anyone could use Algorand for anything, and we have a variety of use cases. Like I said, you know, the music industry, the media and entertainment space this week, World Chess is doing some really cool stuff with innovation in the gaming space on Algorand. So there's a variety of different industries. I think where we see even more than those things, like those are sort of some niche ones for us. I think where we're seeing even more and more is on the financial space, and it's more where DeFi CeFi and traditional finance are sort of coming together and converging, and we're sort of at this tipping point where there might not be the deviation between the two at some point. It'll be more a holistic story of what's the more efficient way to solve whatever problem that is in that space, or anytime there's an exchange of value, how do we do it better? How do we do it more effectively, more efficiently, and with less friction? So, we've got, in terms of marketing and who sits there, who fits there, here at the Inc., and I'll let Addie comment about more of the community and crypto token holders. Here at the Inc., we're really focused on delivering technology that lets all of those things that I was just talking about happen, right? So I look less at some of those, at the crypto and token stuff, and we're really just heads down focused on what are people building that's going to change the world, and how can we empower them, how can we enable them, how can Paul build the best tech for them, right? So that's where our focus is right now. And Addie, I'll let you comment on some of the other stuff that you're seeing with the community more broadly.
Yeah, so I mean, the community is such a broad definition of things. I think, like we've said earlier, the docs are really strong. We have a really strong Discord community, is quite active. Our Telegram channels are so busy, I have trouble keeping up with them, despite the fact I check them multiple times a day. The consciousness sort of around Algorand as a chain, I think from a person that spends my life on the internet, I'm realizing that awareness is starting to peak as well, or not maybe peak, but it's reaching the mainstream finally, and it's kind of coming outside of the crypto sector. So I'm starting to see a lot of the crypto hype people talking about it on YouTube, and I'm seeing people having a conversation about it on Twitter. And it's sort of, I think, the ultimate goal that we all have in the foundation, and perhaps the Inc. is sort of bringing this to the masses and to the communities outside of crypto, because everyone in crypto kind of knows how to implement these things, but really when crypto is going to hit mainstream will be when that point is that we see it mass adopted. And I think Algorand has the potential to do that.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'll say is like, not speaking like crypto specifically, but just if you talk about like DeFi, right? DeFi is a sort of very grassroots movement that is doing amazing innovation and disruption and changing the way people interact with money and with things of value. And then you've got traditional finance, which has its own set of pros and cons. But my guess, and probably, if you're being honest, probably your guess too, is that it won't always stay these totally two, completely separate groups where you've got traditional finance over here and DeFi over here. Over time, they will come together in some kind of ways. Some of those traditional finances will go way on the other end of the spectrum, and some will just move a little bit on the spectrum. And some of the traditional DeFi will come over, and then it'll just be a big mix. And we see part of our role as being a place for those two things to come together. If you're building amazing DeFi applications, you should come to Algorand because it's going to be cheaper, it's going to be faster, and you're going to be just as expressive in terms of the types of applications you're building as you'd be somewhere else. If you have a traditional finance business and you're looking to include blockchain in your stack because you want to move somewhere on the spectrum, maybe it's all the way to the other side of DeFi, or maybe it's just a little bit. Algorand is a place where you want to be because we're cheaper, we're faster, we're just as expressive. And to your point earlier, John, like, we have a very well-known research team. We have a very well-known sort of engineering business side team. Like we're really trying to do things right. And so by having both of those communities, if you will, in the same place, I think that's when you're really going to see a really interesting mix and explosion between all of the innovation in DeFi and all of the very deep pockets in traditional finance. Having them come together in one place is something that we're really excited about doing.
Paul, your comment is so timely because, I mean, it was early January, right, where there was that announcement that like U.S. banks can use public blockchains. And It's exactly what you just said. It's kind of this DeFi and CeFi intermingling. I'm really curious where you see that going. Like, am I going to log into my bank account and is there going to be a button that says buy, some DeFi token, or how do you see that kind of working? I
mean, that would be pretty cool. I hope so. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I think, I won't get too into trying to like call, different banking things because it's not really my focus and I don't have the depth of knowledge there. But, the way that banking competitors has evolved, you have this big spectrum of like the very large traditional banks down to the mid-size, all the way down to these neobanks. And these neobanks are competing on technology. And these are the folks that are bringing in, crypto and other sort of digital assets into their stack and into the way they provide value to their customers. And the way that industries work is you have the big people that have been around a long time with lots of money. You have the small challengers doing all the disruption, and then you get acquisitive and things happen, right? So I would be, if I was trying to call, what do I think banking will look like in the future? I'd be looking at the folks way on the innovative side of the spectrum. I'd be looking at those neobanks. How are they introducing various digital assets? And it's probably going to look something like that, because it will swim upstream. I mean, it's just, that's the way innovation works.
Super exciting.
I think it's also about the long-term, that like what Paul laid out there, that vision and where we see some of this stuff going, has a lot to do with sort of the long-term enduring value that we're trying to build. This isn't like a quick thing. This isn't a quick game. This is a longer-term thing where we're building things that are going to be there for a while and are going to impact the future significantly. And I think that shouldn't be forgotten.
It's a great point. And I mean, one of our Tim Draper's one of our investors, and sitting down with him and listening to him talk, he talks about, he wants the entrepreneurs that are building the companies for the future economy, building the company for 10, 15 years from now. You're not building the company for today, because that company was already built and is capitalizing on what's happening right now. And so you have to think big, and you have to think, longer term. So it's a different world that we live in with, I kind of feel like every company is going to be tokenized, and they're all going to be these like micro economies that are happening, because we're kind of already seeing it in the way that it's working with certain companies right now. And it's just like you guys are talking about, like working with kind of institutional enterprise, like new projects that want to create cool things, but then also this like other ambassador audience that like crypto companies have the ability to tap into that no one else does. And these people are a combination of like, marketers, like educators, and they want to get involved. And it's, I know we don't have too much time left, but it's like, maybe Addie, you can start by like, why does this happen in crypto? And I mean, obviously they're getting some sort of a piece of what you guys are building with a token, but it seems like people, you can see the chat today and how, certain people are super bullish, super bearish, what's going on, but they're invested. At the end of the day, there's passion.
I had to pull that one up. That I'm cracking up here. That's amazing.
It puts him to sleep super quick.
Oh, I'm gonna screen cap that one.
Wow.
So yeah, no, that's my
bullish.
Our background is steeped in that, right? Like that's been Silvio's life, his entire career. I mean, the list of students he's advised that have gone on to change the world is really high. And I think that sort of having that education and thinking about things through an academic lens brings a different perspective. And when you marry that up with, like Paul said, some of the best in engineering research and business, you've got some really great stuff. But Addie, I'll let you comment on some of the current programs there.
I'm not sure where to start. From a foundational standpoint, we've been working a lot on governance and decentralization. And so governance, if you're not familiar with that, I would define kind of simply put as on-chain governance specifically is a process in which blockchain networks can basically determine things like the existing protocol or parameters within the communities. It can support the facilitation of the state of the blockchain. And things we're doing like the distribution of rewards via kind of online easy mechanisms such as voting. So we're going to start launching out voting mechanisms for our grant programs and our bounty programs. Hopefully this year, that's something that I've been actively working on with some of the other researchers. Things like participation awards and making that easy with just basically running a wallet or a node and that sort of thing.
Amazing. Well, we're coming up on the hour, you guys. I really appreciate you guys coming on, and maybe if anyone wants to leave us, Paul, you can just walk us through the next year, the roadmap if you want. We can stay on.
Oh man,
or-
next year the roadmap. Yeah,
Let's do it.
John will do a 3-year roadmap meeting for 4 hours every day. So I don't know what you guys are slacking on.
Well,
I'm happy to share ours too. That's cool.
3 years seems short. Our roadmap is 20 to 25 years. That's what we don't have it that far out, I don't feel comfortable.
I'd like to see that requirements document right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome, guys. Well, I appreciate it. And, just tell everyone, where do you want to send everyone, Twitter, to the site, where should everyone find Algo?
Yeah, I'd say be sure to follow Algorand and the foundation, both at Algorand and at Algo Foundation on Twitter for the latest news and updates. There's a ton coming out. We try and talk and give credit to all of those who are doing really great things, whether it's developers or businesses or enterprises or governments that are doing great things on Algorand. So stay tuned there for all the good stuff coming up.
Awesome. Well, Keli, Addie, Paul, and John, thank you guys all. We'll chat with you backstage here in just a moment.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.